Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, and I'm gonna do something kind of different with this video. One, it's not a horror film, but it is another experimental art film, which I have talked about several lately. They've all been horror films, but uh, this one is not. But it is from a director whose films I have been checking out, and one that I have been very interested in seeing more films of, and that is the Argentinian-born Gaspar Noé, who I think he's Argentinian and French. His films are French. Now, I've already reviewed Climax, which is a horror film. Really enjoyed this. Then I reviewed Irreversible, which is not a horror film, but is known for its shocking and confrontational subject matter. This is my favorite of his so far. I did just pick up his first film, which I have seen, but years ago, before I even really knew who Noé was. That is I Stand Alone. I will be reviewing this as well. And the movie for this review, and this is another one by IFC, which I've been talking a lot about IFC recently. Probably his most famous film, the one that people talk about the most, other than Irreversible for its content. But it's his third film. It is from 2009, and it is Enter the Void. Now, I'm not really sure what I'm going to say about this film, because it is very different than anything else I've seen. I did see that it said full-length director's cut, but I did not think it was going to be 161 minutes, pushing 3 hours. Apparently, when it was first released, the States and the UK got a 143-minute version. It has been heavily compared to 2001 Space Odyssey. After watching it, I can see why. I've heard some people say, to really appreciate it, you had to have had a psychedelic experience. You had to have taken DMT, which I myself have not, but I don't think that's entirely true. I mean, I don't think you necessarily have to have had a DMT trip to really appreciate what this movie is or what it's trying to say. I'm sure it helps, but it's kind of like saying you had to have had huffed raw ether in order to appreciate Fear and Loathing. No. But and the main reason why I've been going and checking out all of these films by Gaspar Noé is because I really like his style. I've really come to appreciate just how much of a visual and just a sensory experience all his films are. I mean, these two especially, I will say for what this film tackles, it's not quite the assault on the senses that these two were. I mean, it's still very much a Noé film, but it's gonna be very hard to describe. It does seemingly feel like one continuous take, like, a number of his films do. A lot of it is broken with certain transitions, like going into a light source and coming out of another one. But anyway, it was... Let's see if I can pull this up here. So directed by Noé, written by Noé, and Lucille Hadzihalilovic, if I pronounce that correctly. It stars Nathaniel Brown, Pats De La Huerta, who I have seen before in the Canadian Giallo parody, The Editor, which I really enjoyed. Also, Cyril Roy and Spear. Benoit Debie did the cinematography. Noé had a hand in I'm editing it as well. And like a number of his films, the music is done by a wide variety of people. Um, which of his, the sound design was done by Ken Yasumoto, but I don't think there's actually a music credit. And right off the bat, I knew that I was in a No Way film because No Way hates opening credits, but he always has crazy credits. And this, very similar to the ones in like Climax, where it's this crazy strobe effect, pulsing music with just 1,000 different names in their own font. I mean, I don't know if you can see all these different companies. They all have their font across the screen during the credits. And the story essentially is it opens up in POV, very much like the 2013 remake of Maniac, where all in the character of Oscar, played by Brown, who is a drug dealer. It's all his POV. So I mean, like, we sort of see his hands as he's doing something. We don't see him unless he's in front of a reflective surface. Even when he blinks, the camera shutters, which I thought was interesting. His sister, played by De La Huerta, is at least a stripper, maybe a prostitute. And he's at home. He takes a hit of DMT. And the movie does treat us to some DMT vortex effects, which he then gets a call to go down to this club called The Void to give his friend Victor some DMT. Which, as he's getting ready for it, we still kind of see that vortex over what he sees. That's what I thought the film was going to be. I thought it was going to be just this drug-fueled night with just crazy visuals, confrontational content, hard-hitting, pounding violence that is very impactful. Not so much, because he catches up with his friend Alex, who walks with him to the Void. He gets to the Void, the cops burst in, and he hides in the bathroom to flush his drugs. They shoot through the door, and he dies. And from then on, the film is him, sort of the camera hovering over the town and watching the aftermath of his loved ones. Kind of as if he's floating in limbo. And just sort of watching what they go through. Until we get to the very ending, which I could say it right now is pretty much given to us in the very beginning of the film, because Alex does serve as the expository character. Because in the very beginning, there's mention of a book called The Tibetan Book of the Dead. When he meets up with Alex, Alex explains it to him about how they believe that when you die, your body and soul separate. Your soul floats around. Your life flashes before your eyes. You see different snippets of your life that made you who you were. And you search for a new way to be reincarnated. And essentially, you do that until you find the life that you like, one that you feel fulfilled, and then you can cross over. That pretty much sums up the film in a very literal way. I know that Noé has gone on to say what this movie is about. The fact that it is all a dream. I actually pulled up the quote here. He says, it's loosely based on, or at least what Oscar sees is loosely based on the Tibetan Book of the Dead. He says it's a dream of someone who read the book, and then they get stoned, then they're shot, and uh, he has an intonation of his own dream. And then he went on to even describe the ending of the film, which what he says about it I'll save for later, but there's many different interpretations of this. The very literal sense that yes, he is now this, his soul is this force that is floating and watching, and then gets all the different clips from his life building up to that moment, and then looks for a way to reincarnate. Other people have said that the whole movie is just his dream. Like, when the movie ends, he wakes up on his couch from the beginning of the film, and none of that ever happened. Which, there were several points in the film where I did think that, because that's a theory to one of my favorite films ever, Once Upon a Time in America. A lot of people believe that the 1965 portion of that film is all Robert De Niro's opium dream. So that was something I did think of. Personally, I think it does follow the whole Book of the Dead idea, because it does show how he could be reincarnated in a very graphic way that I've never seen before. A good chunk of the film is his past, which is a very interesting way of doing it, because instead of showing it to us like a movie, it's like the camera is always behind Oscar's shoulder, kind of showing us everything around him, as if he's watching himself but still out of body. So I thought that was very interesting. And so like we see we see Oscar's memory of when his parents were killed in the car accident, with him and his sister Linda in the back seat. How they made the promise to never leave each other. And ultimately how that promise was broken because they got sent to separate foster homes. His way of trying to save up to get her a plane ticket to come to Tokyo, which is where he lives, was to become a drug dealer. He became a drug dealer, then he was able to save up enough money, flew her out, she became a stripper. I mean, that's kind of it. I mean, there is more to it, and a good chunk of the film are those flashbacks. A lot of them are told more than once. Like the car crash, like them promising each other when they're kids, when they're adults asking, hey, do you remember that pact we made? There is a lot of repetition. Then, more so in the third act, after all that, as he's going from place to place throughout the town, witnessing what's going on with his loved ones, that gets very repetitive. Like, he sort of hovers over the town very quickly. We see him kind of go through walls, kind of like a Fight Club sequence where he just kind of goes through the wall. We see all the pipes and everything. Then he's in the room, but overhead. See what happens there. Then there's like a light source that he goes into, comes out and goes somewhere else. So there is a lot of repetition, and I think that was done on purpose as Noe's way of saying time is relevant. There are some wonderful transitions. One of his memories is of him and Linda on a roller coaster. And as the roller coaster goes down, it's like they go down and into a tunnel. Then when they come to the tunnel, we just see the headlights of the truck come that hit and killed their parents. Other than that, yes, the color scheme and the lighting does play in very well to the psychedelic nature of the film, but also just, whoops, from his other films, lighting and colors are very big with No Way. With this, it's mostly just reds and yellows. So I would say these two, especially. I would just say not necessarily the time, because I can watch very long movies, but with this, it did kind of get a little tedious. I mean, towards the end, when he's going through the Love Hotel, going from room to room, seeing all the different people have sex and everything, which is really one of the last things that happens. By that point, I was just it was kind of losing me. It did get a little tedious. uh, the score, I mean, there is this almost constant ominous sound that's often done by layering. So it's like this constant build of just this noise that does help set the atmosphere. But there is a lot of, dance music, or there's a couple scenes that uses a lullaby rendition of Bach's Air on the G string, which happens at a couple different points, like when they're kids and he's putting her to bed, and then right before they're on the roller coaster. They're on the roller coaster before they get hit. There are some Freudian aspects as well, like Oscar possibly longing for a paternal or a maternal type figure. One of the plot points is he has sex with Victor's mother, which leads to why Victor got the police. It kind of set him up to get caught. There is some implied kind of incestuous love between Linda and Oscar, or at least longing for each other, including a sequence of her just repeatedly kissing him on the neck or his ear. I don't know how much you can read into that, but also I do like how, like, almost, I don't know if it happens at the beginning of, but certainly at the end of a sequence, as he's floating around, right before he goes into like a source of light to go somewhere else. It turns into like this wide angle, or almost like this fisheye lens look, almost like the room is wrapping around itself. And whenever he sees something that enrages him, it kind of goes into like this earthquake mode, which I thought was very interesting. Like, it's mentioned that the manager of the strip club where Linda works, Mario, Oscar hates him. He thinks he's just a sleazy person. And he even said to Alex in the beginning, like, if she ever gets pregnant, I'm going to kill the baby myself. We find out, as he's checking in on everyone, that she is pregnant. And it's at that point, the camera gets kind of angry. She goes to get an abortion, where we do zoom in right on the fetus. And, I mean, the movie is such a visual experience that the only thing I can really do for you is just explain what happens. You really do got to see it to at least appreciate it. I know I said earlier you have to do something to appreciate it, but I will say for all his films, I'm not going to hold up I Stand Alone, because it's been, I don't remember much, but at least these three, like, yeah, you really do got to see them in order to really appreciate just why a simple story, you're tripping on LSD, things go to shit, a rape revenge story in reverse, guy gets shot, relives all the traumatic parts of his life, and then just goes around watching over his loved ones as a spirit or a force until the end. Uh, and the reason why what I took away from the ending, because based on what Alex said in the beginning about looking for a window to reincarnate, eventually Alex and Linda do get together. Which, I mean, in the beginning, he's talking about Linda like, oh, I want to go see your sister. And then during flashbacks, we see that they met, but she didn't really like him. And then we see Linda saying, I should be with Mario, I should be with Alex. Well, eventually they do get together. And when he floats over to see them, they're having sex. But it's done in a way like where he's on top, and there's like this Pulp Fiction glowing light coming from like the center of both of them, as if that's the light he needs to enter to reincarnate. That's what I started thinking when that happened, and eventually he does go inside of her. So now we have like an inside a vagina POV with a CGI penis head essentially coming through like this. He climaxes. He follows the sperm all the way to the egg. And then, a lot of sequences like this are drawn out into like a trippy DMT type vortex. Not just this, but like when he goes into like a light or whatever. It is like 2001 Space Odyssey where it's like going through space and time itself. Until eventually he comes out, and now we're in POV again of a young baby, and as he's going to get washed up, we just get a white screen that says the void. So that's what I think. Personally, I see why other people would think it's just a DMT dream, and when the movie ends, he wakes up and he's still alive, and the movie never happened. Or some people have said that he is dying, but he's not actually floating around. That's all his dying dream. I see how that could make sense too. I always tend to go the more a literal route, whereas he is floating around, and then eventually he does find a way to reincarnate. And in fact, I think there is a visual turning point in the film, because where Alex is wanted by the police for questioning, he's out hiding, and kind of homeless, and he's an artist, and at one point he has a fire, and he's using the like black of a stick from the fire to do graffiti. He's under a bridge. And as Oscar approaches him, his graffiti says, I want to live. And it's almost like Alex is talking to him. But the camera kind of moves away when it goes back and says, I want to die. And I think that's the point where he's no longer searching for or, worried about dying and giving up the life that he had and trying to find a way to a new life. I think that's the turning point. Which he does see. He does see one of Linda's dreams as well. She does have a dream where Oscar survived, is resuscitated, but he's lost his speech. And she's repulsed by him. She hates him. And when she wakes up, she thinks it's creepy to have his ashes. So she dumps his ashes down the sink. He goes down the sink, and that's when he finds Alex with the I want to live, I want to die. And I think that's when he makes the decision to not just float around anymore or make sense of anything, but to be reborn. Overall, it is a really good visual experience. It is what you can expect from Gaspar Noé. Great lighting, great camera work, great editing as well. It does a lot of times feel like one continuous shot. I will say it does get a bit tedious. It does get a bit repetitive, though I think the repetition is done for effect. Uh, I, I didn't really like it as much as these two. I mean, this was just a visceral gut punch of an experience. This one was very uh, hypnotic. It pulls you in. The shocking scenes were, very impactful. Very artfully done. This, I'm not sure what to make of it. I did enjoy it, just not as much as those other two. But it was still fun to watch. It was a good visual experience that you can expect from Noé. I'm sure there's a bunch of other things I could have said about it, but I don't know. Maybe I need to watch it a few more times. Maybe it's like Antichrist, like I said in my review for Lars von Trier's Antichrist, where it'll mean different things to different people at different points in their lives. Maybe that's something else to take away from it. But yeah, ultimately, I prefer these two over Enter the Void. I still highly recommend these two. Well, not for everyone, but... So, I do have one more Gaspar Noé film to get to, which is I Stand Alone, which I don't think is a horror film either. I think it's more along the lines of Irreversible, where it is just this very confrontational, shocking kind of subject matter. But he does have a horror film coming out, which is called Vortex, and when that comes out, I'll certainly see and review it. But I have a few more 80s slasher films to get to, a couple 70s proto-slashers to get to. So stay tuned for those, and thank you for watching.